Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I welcome you all to this very special session in which we are introducing a very hardworking research team. The research team of the Youth General Assembly Legal Forum has been working on a very special project aimed at decoding the law on gender based violence in Pakistan. We have covered various aspects of it, and all of our members would be reflecting on which particular area they've been working. Broadly, we've worked on rape and sexual abuse, domestic violence, honor crime, asset crime, and particularly on the rights of gender minorities in Pakistan. We've also covered the cybercrime perspective of gender crime and how gender minorities and women are subject to cybercrime and the legal regime that protects them. I have with me six very hardworking individuals who have worked on particular chapters. They will be introducing the research they've done. And what is the special announcement, the reason why we've curated this session, we will also be revealing that towards the middle of this. So we'll start with Mohammed Zain Alam. Zain, you have to introduce yourself to our audience, and at the same time, just let us know which area you've been working on and how was your experience.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed and I am honors program in and I have done multiple research projects in currently we were working on which firm and the other project we were working rape which I have which I worked and tried all possible aspect to understand this crime and how to tackle it in our society.
Perfect. So Zain has been working on rape and sexual abuse, and in his research, he has reflected on the importance of
In the meantime, I elaborate the chapter I was working. I was working on the chapter of rape, which I collected all the information from the different legislative and other legal research programs, and I collected most of the data and analyzed and elaborate how the rape is considered in our society, what perspective associated, and now and how it's developed in our law, our system, in our policing and legislation, and finally in how we can adopt in our society and we what we perceive the term rape in our perspective and all the laws after all the information and all research that have done on it, and that was the main purpose to how we perceive this crime actually. So crime against women, and especially because this is considered many crimes, sexual harassment and offense, but rape considered as most dangerous and the most severe crime in this aspect. So that I have been working on, that was a chapter, and that conclude my research.
Sorry, there was a power outage at my end. Have you guys been speaking? Did you guys continue, or we stopped after Zen? So if we stopped after Zen, we can move to Aksa, and Aksa can introduce the subject area that you worked on, and just introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Aksa Javed and I'm a practicing lawyer. I am currently working with Digital Right Foundation as their legal associate, and my area of interest is in criminal law and specifically in human rights. And more specifically, I am interested in gender-based violence or डिजिटल लाइक YGA के लिए मैंने अभी जो रिसेंटली जिस रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट पे काम किया है उसके अंदर मैंने ऑनर किलिंग के एरिया टॉपिक पे काम किया है.
Right. Thank you, Aksa, for the introduction. We'll move to Amna. So Amna has been a research associate with the Youth General Assembly Legal Forum. So Amna, just introduce yourself and also specify the area that you've worked on.
Hi, my name is Amna. I've been research, as Hania mentioned, I'm a research associate at YGA. My topic was gender-based and cybercrime. So I've been researching on what is cybercrime, how is cybercrime, affecting Pakistan, what are the laws, the loopholes that came in Britain, how individuals are being victimized because of the cybercrime currently being the high from 2018 till 21. It has been highest recorded crime in Pakistan according to the news, and we've been collecting information from the newspapers, acts, and cases. So that's my research.
Perfect. Sarmad, are you there? So if Sarmad, you're there, then it's time that you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here in the first place. I am Sarmad Sidar. I'm an advocate of the High Court and I'm a practicing lawyer. So primarily, gender-based violence, the topic that that's under discussion. It's basically a broader topic. It involves harassment, it involves physical violence, a lot of other topics that can be covered in the spectrum. The topic that I've primarily did some bits of research on was on acid attacks. So it's prevalent. It's prevalent. This specific gender-based violence targeted especially to women and girls. It is basically prevalent in Asian subcontinent, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and all of these countries, and most parts of Afghanistan as well. Only because we have a very few symbolic presence of legislation. There's a 2011 Act that we have, and there's a 2018 Crime and Burns Act, I believe, that we have. But the underlying problem that seems to be apparent is the fact that the sale and production and the manufacturing of acid throughout the country, and specifically in Pakistan, that is uncontrollable. The acts, the legislation that we have, that's hardly implemented here. So this is one of the topics that I probably did my part.
Thank you, Sarmad, for the introduction. We also have Abu Turab Haider. And Abu Turab, if you could introduce yourself and the area that you've been focusing on.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope I'm audible. My name is Abu Turab Haider. I'm a practicing lawyer at Law Concern, and the topic which I covered was the atrocities which were made on transgenders. So basically, transgender rights which are prevalent in Pakistan. This was the topic which was assigned to me, and it was quite an interesting topic. I have covered the historical impact of transgenders in our Pakistani and subcontinent culture. I have also discussed how much and to what extent the atrocities were given to these transgenders. What are their conditions? What are the malnourished prospects they are facing in this country? We have discussed I have discussed a lot of statutory provisions as well as many case laws which support that there are some heinous atrocities which are committed upon transgender rights, and this was the topic which was assigned to me and I covered it. So that was all it. Thank you.
Thank you, Turab. We've been joined by Eamon. So hi, Eamon. If you could introduce yourself and the topic that you've covered, I think it's a very pertinent topic.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible clearly? Okay. So I'm Evan Azim. I'm basically a final year law student. So I've been a part of YG for quite some time. I mean, it's been more like 1 year. Then I've joined the legal forum and I have worked as a research associate of the legal forum of YG. So the topic that I was assigned, it was domestic violence. Under gender-based violence, my specific topic was domestic violence. So I have worked on it. I have worked at the the statistics of the domestic violence in Pakistan and how it increased during the time of COVID-19 and different perspective. One more thing that was very special toward this topic was that the domestic violence bill that was introduced in the National Assembly in 2021, then it was turned down, and I have gone through all through that bill and the relevant laws that we have, the relevant legal framework related to domestic violence. So I tried to cover most of the laws. So that was a little bit introduction of my topic. That's I think Hania is facing some sort of technical issues.
I guess we should start with our brief discussion about our chapters. Should I start? Okay. So the brief discussion about my chapter is that I mainly start with giving definition of honor crimes. मैंने सबसे पहले चैप्टर के अंदर इसको डिफरेंट सेट्स में डिवाइड किया हुआ है. लाइक मैंने अपने चैप्टर को डेफिनेशन से स्टार्ट किया कि ऑनर क्राइम्स या ऑनर किलिंग्स होती क्या हैं. ऑनर क्राइम्स आर मेनली the crimes that people committed against person, uh, which they consider like जिन उन्हें लगता है कि वो इंसान उनकी फैमिली की रेपुटेशन के ऊपर या उनकी जो फैमिली की एक वैल्यू क्रिएट हुई होती है उसके ऊपर कोई डिसऑनर लेके आ रहा है. सो मेनली ये उस स्पेसिफिक पर्सन के अगेंस्ट कमिट किया जाता है. उसके बाद मैंने इसको और डिफाइन किया है कि इसकी हिस्टोरिकल एग्जिस्टेंस क्या है, राइट. तो पाकिस्तान के अंदर सेक्शन 299 ऑफ पीपीसी डील करता है मेनली ऑनर क्राइम से. जो हेड है लाइक की लेजिस्लेशन ऑन ऑनर किलिंग ऑफ पाकिस्तान का, मैंने अपने चैप्टर के अंदर उस हेड के अंदर डिफरेंट लॉस को डिफाइन किया है. स्टार्ट विद पाकिस्तान पीनल कोड सेक्शन 299 ऑफ पीपीसी जो मेनली इसको डील कर रहा है, जो ऑनर किलिंग की डेफिनेशन को डिफाइन करता है. उसके बाद फिर मैंने हिस्टोरिकल एग्जिस्टेंस के ऊपर बताया है कि किस तरीके से हमारे लॉ के अंदर ये ब्रिटिश रूल्स से हमने ये कॉन्सेप्ट अडॉप्ट किया हुआ है. लाइक इन 1837 जब एक लॉ कमीशन बनाई गई थी उस टाइम के ऊपर, और किस तरीके से उस लॉ कमीशन ने इस ओवरऑल रिसर्च करके ये कंक्लूड किया था कि अगर ऑनर के नाम पर कोई कत्ल किया जाता है या कोई क्राइम कमिट होता है तो वो मर्डर नहीं, वो मैनस्लॉटर कंसिडर किया जाएगा. इसी के साथ साथ जब ये चीज़ हमने पाकिस्तान के अंदर अपनी अडॉप्ट की है, उसके साथ जब आगे फ्रॉड प्रोसीजर्स चलते रहे तो फिर एक जजमेंट गुल हसन वर्सेस दी स्टेट एक जजमेंट आई जिसके अंदर कोर्ट ने डिसाइड किया कि जितने भी इस्लामिक जो क्राइम्स हैं बॉडी के अगेंस्ट वो अन इस्लामिक है क्योंकि उसके अंदर किसास और दियत लॉज नहीं हैं. इस जजमेंट के बाद हमारे पास जो मेन न्यू लॉ इंट्रोड्यूस करवाया गया था इस जजमेंट को फॉलो अप करते हुए, वो क्रिमिनल अमेंडमेंट ऑर्डिनेंस ऑफ 1990 था. उस ऑर्डिनेंस से हुआ ये था कि हमारे पास ऑनर किलिंग के क्राइम्स के साथ जो भी क्राइम आपकी बॉडी के अगेंस्ट किया जाता है उसके अंदर दियत और किसास के लॉस डाल दिए गए थे. ये अपने लॉ वाले हेड के अंदर मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया है कि किस तरीके से ये जो दियत और किसास का कॉन्सेप्ट ऑनर क्राइम्स के अंदर जब डाला गया, लाइक इट इज़ अ गुड कॉन्सेप्ट टू इंट्रोड्यूस इन और लीगल सिस्टम, क्योंकि ये इस्लामिक लॉ के इस्लामिक लॉ से कुरान या सुन्नत से लिया जाता है, लेकिन ये तब प्रॉब्लमेटिक हो जाता है जब ये ऑनर किलिंग के एरिया के अंदर पाया जाए. मैंने अपने पूरे चैप्टर के अंदर एक्सप्लेन किया है कि किसास और दियत के थ्रू जो वली वाला कॉन्सेप्ट होता है, जब वो ऑनर किलिंग्स या ऑनर क्राइम्स के अंदर आता है तो वो एक प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करता है, क्योंकि उसके थ्रू आप वली को राइट देते हो कि वो जो भी एक्यूज़ होता है उस विक्टिम का या जो भी उस क्राइम का एक्यूज़ होता है वो उसको माफ़ कर सकता है. उसके बाद जब ये वाली ये दियत और किसास के लॉस के बाद काफ़ी गुल हसन जजमेंट के बाद काफ़ी सारे लोगों ने लाइक जजेस ने सडन प्रोवोकेशन की प्रिंसिपल के ऊपर और दियत और किसास को फिर वाले कॉन्सेप्ट को लेते हुए इन जजमेंट्स के इन कॉन्सेप्ट्स को यूज़ करते हुए हमेशा एक्यूज़ के बेनिफिट में जजमेंट्स देना शुरू कर दी थी. तो फाइनली फिर हमने ये सब फिर फाइनली 2004 की अमेंडमेंट तक लेकर गया. जब 2004 की अमेंडमेंट आई तो उसके अंदर लेजिस्लेचर की तरफ से कुछ चेंजेस भी लाए गए. उसके अंदर दियत वली का कॉन्सेप्ट थोड़ा चेंज किया गया कि जो माफ़ करने वाला राइट है वली के पास नहीं, वो स्टेट के पास होगा. लेकिन इस अमेंडमेंट के बाद भी कुछ ज़्यादा चेंजेस नहीं आए. इसके बाद 2016 की अमेंडमेंट आई गई तो ये सारा लॉ रिजीम है जो ऑनर किलिंग को डील करता है. उसके बाद मैंने अपने चैप्टर के अंदर लीगल रिकमेंडेशंस दी हैं, सर्वेस की हैं, स्टैटिस्टिक्स की हैं जो ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन ने पास किए हुए हैं या डिफरेंट फाउंडेशंस ने पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो यूजुअली इसके ऊपर रिसर्च कर रही हैं जो उनकी तरफ से दिए गए हैं. तो मेनली जो ब्रीफ डिस्कशन है वो चैप्टर की कि ये इंट्रोड्यूस किया जाता है डेफिनेशंस के थ्रू, फिर उसका एक पूरा लीगल एरिया जो लॉ जो पाकिस्तान में उसे डील कर रहा है, और उसके बाद फिर जो लीगल रिकमेंडेशंस या लूपहोल्स हैं और उसके बाद जो सर्वेस वगैरह हैं.
Okay, so chapter that was based on the rape. So when we see the rape term, so it is a crime of passion, crime, anger, and rage. So I most is the term how we and how we should, and most important death, because there are many causes of rape, but no one explains the types of rape, how many ways a rape can be committed. So I emphasize on that. And secondly, then I go from the history and to the law legislative work on the trade laws and how we see what laws are and how we add in new legislation act the recent judgments and recent development in rape cases. So how we perceive that the judicial system in that, and after that, legislative sexual crime, and moving forward with these legislative, I also attach the medical and psychological research data that tell us how we perceive victim and offender and how we can understand both of them. Because we were working on a project where we elaborate law and policy and how it make better our environment in our society. So I collected that data and analyzed and prescribed how we can provide a better environment to the victim, and how we can provide an environment where a offender can be rehabilitate itself, and how the policing and laws facilitate victim more, and how we the hurdles that we face in the judicial system, how we can overcome it. And there are many discussions continuing on the punishment of rape or order debate on castration and public hanging of the rape. But the main topic and the main focus is how we can prevent it before happening it. So I also conclude that research was and I include the medical data to explain the types of rape, and then the legal research, then the legal legislative work on that, and then how an individual and from an organization and governments, lawyers, judicial system, judges, police, and every department of our society can they work, and they can adopt new policy, new techniques to stop rape, to stop it happening, or how it happens, how we can manage it, how we can judge everyone in these problems. So because these are the research that I've done on my chapter on my behalf, and that's all.
Right, thank you. So, who else is left? Because I'm an internet issue, and I really apologize for that. So, who else wants to, contribute on what exactly their research has encompassed? So, Sarmad, are you left?
Yeah,
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 perfect.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
am. So primarily, the research is as follows. So, with regards to ACID Act, there are certain classifications that it has. There are certain classifications, and there are certain protections that are provided by the law. With regards to protections, I want to highlight that there are certain constitutional guarantees that are provided in our Constitution of 1973. There's this recent judgment, recent pronouncement of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Uh, it is cited as PLD 2021 SC 550, which basically, which whereas Mansoor Ali Shah Sahab, the honorable judge, he basically held that every person has a right to live, and that right to live means that he has the right to live a dignified life. So he basically interpreted Article 9 and Article 14 of our Constitution in nexus with the gender-based violence cases and the gender sensitivity issues. So, with regards to the legislation, moving on, with regards to the legislation, the domestic legislation that we have, I believe a symbolic one, is there's this one bill, a recent one of 2018, which is ACID and Crime Bill 2018, and then there's this Act of 2011, which is ACID Control and Prevention Act. With regards to moving on, the problem that's the underlying problem that basically surrounds this issue of ACID attacks is basically the manufacture and the production. So back then in 1919, there was this Poisons Act, which basically refrains. It has punishments for all those. It penalizes all those manufacturers of whosoever manufactures or sells these corrosive substances, which are used primarily for this purpose, to which, of course, the women in general and the girls are basically a victim to. So it carries a discussion over that as well. Then there are certain there's this jurisprudence that's developed in Pakistan as well. The jurisprudence developed in India as well, and we've tried to make it more comprehensive, so that our readers or people can understand basically that what are the far-reaching implications that it has basically on survivors and the victims and the perpetrators. The punishment that it has in the Pakistan Penal Code, the relevant section, I believe, is 336B, which is non-compoundable. But interestingly, but when a victim, for example, dies of acid burns, that offense gets converted to 302, which is a 300 ka offense. But that offense 302 is a compoundable one. So the situation is sort of interesting. We're lacking the implementation to it, and so it carries a discussion almost about all of these areas that I've covered.
Right, perfect. So, okay, so at this stage, it is very important to let our viewers know that what exactly is this project about, because I'm sure a lot of you, even at this stage, I'm not sure that what exactly we're talking about research. So, where have we compiled this research? So, the idea behind Youth Student Assembly Legal Forum's research project was that we compile a handbook. Now, the reason why we chose a handbook is because I personally believe, and a lot of others also agree with this opinion, that when you have something in writing, you have something in print form with you, it can help young students, young practitioners just entering the field, because it gives a better grip over the subject. It is more, obviously, we're going to make it accessible by putting up a soft copy as well, but we want it to be in the book that can be sold in the market, and anybody who's interested in knowing what gender-based violence laws are in Pakistan, he can purchase this book, and this is going to be a book encompassing the different aspects of gender-based violence laws in Pakistan. Now, this handbook is currently in its editing stages. We have 60 hardworking research associates who have worked on different chapters, as you know, to this stage. We have a chapter dedicated to rape and sexual abuse that has been drafted by Zain. We have a separate chapter on domestic violence that has been covered by Eamon. There's a chapter on honor killings and honor crimes that has been covered by Aksa. Sarmad has worked on acid crimes, and Amna has worked on gender and cybercrime, while Turab has worked on gender minorities and their rights in Pakistan. This handbook will be available most probably in September in markets, and we'll be doing a proper launching for that. And this will also be available in soft copy on our website. Now, it is very important to know that these particular areas that we have discussed have not just been covered. There is not a complete or a simple explanation given of these laws. They have critically analyzed. Our research associates have critically analyzed these laws. And when any legislative regime is being analyzed, this means that the associate or anybody who's working on that has also highlighted or has also come across some loopholes in the law. Since Pakistan is not faring well on the gender parity index, that means there is something wrong with our gender-based legislation. So let's see what our research associates have figured out, that what is the particular area which is lacking when it comes to these different laws. Start with you, Eamon, went through the domestic violence legislation. What have you identified as the loopholes or something where Pakistan's legislation is falling short, that convictions in domestic violence and at the same time, even people reporting domestic violence is such an obstacle? So, what are the loopholes that you've identified in the legal regime?
Okay. First of all, when I started working on it, so the gender domestic violence bill 2021 that was turned down in the National Assembly. So I have just I tried to figure out just the definition out of it, that how did it define domestic violence. So it's a general perception that domestic violence includes only the physical abuse only. So one plus thing that I found in the laws, the existing laws in the Punjab Act, and also the Sindh Act as well, they have included the mental torture as well, that कि अच्छा इसको ये भी domestic violence में ही include होता है. Then okay, it's a separate debate. When I have critically analyzed the act passed by the Sindh Assembly, it has included children and elderly people as well. They have not just to women. It's not particularly related to the women only. It has included the kids and the elder people if they are subject to abuse. So it also comes under the domestic violence. So when I was comparing the law passed by the Sindh Assembly and the one passed by the Punjab Assembly, so I would say the law passed by the Sindh Assembly, it's it's a good piece of legislation rather than the one passed by the Punjab. There are different loopholes given in the Punjab Act because they have given the jurisdiction to the family. So if you go and check out the Family Court Act 1964, so Family Court has given an exhaustive list, a schedule at the end of it कि फैमिली कोर्ट्स की jurisdiction जो है वो किन किन subjects पे है. So there is उस schedule के अंदर domestic violence का तो कहीं पे जिक्र ही नहीं आता. So these are different loopholes. Then I have moved from constitution to PPC and then to the specific laws. Constitution does not talk about domestic violence explicitly, of course, but it talks the Article 9 of the Constitution talks about the security of a person, and it talks about the security of the life and the liberty of a person. So the person does not include only the men or only the elder people or only the kids. It talks about the security of a citizen. So women are also the citizen of Pakistan, and domestic violence is actually one way or another is the breach of Article 9 of the Constitution. And then I have covered PPC, the relevant provisions. PPC again does not explicitly covers, or there is not no separate chapter about domestic violence, but there are separate provisions that cover those actions or those wrongs that are actually come under domestic violence. Because if you move toward from PPC to the specific laws, the act passed by the Punjab Assembly and by the Sindh Assembly, so they have covered several acts of violence which are also covered in PPC. So PPC is basically in terms of domestic violence. PPC again is a general law, but the laws passed by the respective provincial governments, they are specific in their nature. So at the end, lastly, I have given some recommendations as well, but I have the major focus of my paper is basically the critical analysis of the Punjab Act and the Sindh Act, and there's then a comparison between the two.
Perfect.
And I would.
So,
Yes,
we can move to the recommendations part later. I'll get back to you on the recommendations.
Sure.
Currently, we're just going to talk about the loopholes. So, Zain, you went through another very critical discussion on the rape laws. So, what exactly are the loopholes that you identified in Pakistan's legal regime on rape? And how do you think that these loopholes, these legislative loopholes, can be overcome?
Thank you. And when we were researching on the topics that we
if Zain,
find
you
a
cannot
very
hear me, then I
important
think
case.
we'll move. Pardon, Zain, are you saying
Sorry,
something?
your voice is distorted. I can't hear you properly.
Okay. So, Zain, what are the legal loopholes that you identified in your research on the rape laws in Pakistan?
I was explaining that when we will start researching, we find that there are very less reported cases and there are multiple unreported cases. Then we find reason for that why they are unreported because people don't know what exactly we call rape. So we find that the law, the PPC, the different legislative, they define only single rape, but there are multiple types of rape that are happening in our society, but people don't consider that rape. They are just considering it harassment or bullying something, so they are not reporting that. And the other reason for that is there are also not proper forum for that proper advising, and there is no training session for the judges, even the lawyers and the advisor police. For that, there are many multiple loopholes in that stage, and there are also many laws that are defining it and they're elaborating its punishment. Only there's the punishment of rehabilitation. It's encouraging in international forums and in UK and US, but Pakistan is only based on the death penalty, and they're nowadays starting on public hanging of the culprit on rapist. So there are multiple loopholes in the law that we are not understanding the term law, and we are not understanding how we can tackle it, because it's we see there are multiple legislation in the recent years, but the rape is not controlled by them, but they are still going on. So we need to change something in the law. We need to introduce new system. We need to train officials, public officials, so that we can make some changing in the regime.
Right, then. Thank you for your response. So, Amna, mostly because I personally believe that cybercrime is something that is emerged to be quite a modern trend in crime, and I'm sure you'll agree with it because this is the most modern development. We've had rape ever since so the longest time I can remember that the world has recognized rape as a crime. We also have had honor killings. We've also had acid crime, but cybercrime, with the advancement in technology, has emerged to be the most modern way of committing a crime. And again, gender minorities, women, are the most affected people by these crimes. So, firstly, just briefly go over the legislative regime and how you've covered that legislative regime in your research, and at the same time, just give us a brief overview of the loopholes that you've identified and something that can be improved to ensure better protection of gender minorities, including women and other transgenders as well.
I totally agree, as you said, that's relatively new. So, like if we go to the legal aspect, the law was enacted by the National Assembly in 2016. The Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act was 2016, and after that, still people are trying to get the hang of it. That if they are getting cyber bullying or stalking or harm, they need to go and get it regist- registered that this has happened to them, but still it's not. And as far as concerned with the legal regime, the act is still under the process of amendments. Like recently, there was an amendment that defamation is considered as a non-viable offense uh, in the legal regime, and then some they're also linking towards the penal Pakistan's penal code, like for example the section 292 of pornography or defamation, section 500. So it's still in the process of people getting the idea that there's a law that exists that can protect them from mental harm they get, but still there are loopholes. Like the FIA has made a special wing, which is the cybercrime wing, to tackle these crimes, but it's still under the process. They're trying to get hang of the cyber terrorism or cyber stalking. So apart there are loopholes, but recently, like in 2020, cabinet approved another bill which was linked with the PAC, which was Citizens Protection Against Online Harm, which was basically regulating the social media, all the social media aspects, like what is going on the social media, because hate speech has been very common, terrorism has been very common. So I'll say it's going like simultaneously. There are loopholes, and the law and the uh, assembly and the cabinet is trying to make awareness that we're trying to help our society, help the people. So it's going simultaneously.
Right. So that's quite an interesting observation that the law is being developed. It's not in a very, laws are never completely developed. They're also constantly in the process of being developed. But the cybercrime law is one which is going rapid development over time. And although there's so many loopholes at this point in time, we can hope at least that, since we are doing this effort of pointing out the loopholes and suggesting ways to improve it, there would be a general improvement in society regarding this law. So I would like to move towards the final segment of this webinar, in which I would be asking each one of you that what is your general observation and when it comes to gender-based violence laws in Pakistan. So what is your general observation? How can the laws be improved and how can conviction rates be improved? So you have to comment on this generally. And secondly, you have to highlight certain pertinent recommendations which are very important to improve the state of law in the particular area on which you've worked. So I'll just be starting with Turab. So if you're there, Turab, just turn on your camera and you can start commenting on it. So how can this particular area that you worked on, it can be further improved?
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. My recommendations and my observation regarding the transgenders in Pakistan, it's quite clear and vivid. I think सबसे पहले हमने transgenders को एक टैबू एस्पेक्ट बनाया हुआ है सोसाइटी का. تو جب تک ہم ان کو ہارمونائز نہیں کریں گے, سوشلائز نہیں کریں گے اپنی پاکستانی سوسائٹی میں, تب تک جو پاکستانی لاز ہیں وہ اپنی پکڑ مضبوطی سے نہیں بنا سکیں گے. سو دیٹس مائی فرسٹ ریکمنڈیشن, دیٹ وی نیڈ ٹو make them harmonize and make them socialize with us in our culture and stop calling them a taboo figure. So that's my recommendation, and by this means, by this method, our laws can be further improved and they can be practically implemented upon them. So that's my view.
Right. So I think that's a very interesting
Right. So I
recommendation
think
that you've given.
that's a very interesting recommendation that you've given.
Could you please mute yourself, Turab?
Could you?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's a very interesting recommendation that came forward, and it's very important to understand this. It's not a strictly legal recommendation. He's not suggesting that the law be changed. Once society's behaviors are changed, or even efforts are done towards changing behaviors, then that would automatically reflect in the legislation and the way that legislation is being enforced and interpreted. That's a very interesting recommendation. Thank you, Turab, for that. Moving on, Aksa. This area particularly, when you talk about honor killing or crimes in the name of honor, very recently we've had the very important case of Kandil Baloch, and how the brother, the principal accused, was acquitted by the High Court. That raises very significant questions, that how can this area be improved? So what are your recommendations? Just briefly going over them.
اوکے سو جب میں نے اس ٹاپک کے اوپر ریسرچ کیا ہے تو آئی آبزرو کہ جب بھی آنر کلنگ کے اوپر لا بنایا گیا ہے, ایون ایف وی آر ٹاکنگ اباؤٹ دا برٹش ایرا رول, اور جب ہم ایون آرڈیننس کے بارے میں بھی بات کرتے ہیں جو 1919 میں پاس کیا گیا تھا, یا پھر 2004 کی امینڈمنٹ, یا قندیل بلوچ کے مرڈر کے بعد 2016 کی امینڈمنٹ. سو آئی فیل کہ ان سارے لا ریجیمس کے وقت پر بھی ایک لوپ ہول ہے جو کبھی بھی دوبارہ امینڈمنٹس میں یا دوبارہ لا بناتے ہوئے کنسیڈر نہیں کیا گیا. برٹش ایرا کے ٹائم پہ بھی ہم گریو اور سڈن پرووکیشن کا جو پرنسپل ہے اسے اپہیلڈ کر کے ہمیشہ جوڈیشری جو ہوتی تھی وہ ایکیوز کو بینیفٹ دیتی تھی. اس کے بعد جب قصاص اور دیت کا لا یا آرڈیننس پاس کیا گیا, اور اس کے تھرو جو ولی والا کانسیپٹ تھا جو قندیل بلوچ کے کیس میں بھی یا سائمہ سرور والے کیس میں بھی ہمیں دیکھنے کو ملتا ہے کہ جب ان کے پیرنٹس نے اسے قتل کر دیا تھا تو اس کے بھائی نے اسے معاف کر دیا. تو یہ جو ولی والا کانسیپٹ ہے اس کو کسی طریقے سے جو 2004 یا 2016 کی بھی امینڈمنٹس آئی تھیں انہیں اگر کسی طریقے سے ڈیل کرنے کی کوشش بھی کی گئی تو ہر طریقے سے ہم اس لوپ ہول کو کور نہیں کر سکے, کیونکہ ہم اگر ولی والے کانسیپٹ کو کمپلیٹلی کور بھی کریں تو ہم ججز کے پاس اتنی ڈسکریشنری پاورز رکھ دیتے ہیں کہ وہ کس گریو اور سڈن پرووکیشن کے پرنسپل کو یا آپ ولی کے پرنسپل کو لے لیں یا کسی بھی لا کے ایک اسپیسیفک پروویژنس کو اس طریقے سے انٹرپریٹ کر سکتے ہیں جس میں ہم آنر کلنگ کا یہ جو ایشو ہے اس کو بہتر طریقے سے کنسیڈر یا اس کو اوور کم نہیں کیا جا سکتا. سو آئی فیل کہ اس کے لیے 2-3 ریکمنڈیشنس تو مجھے لگتا ہے کہ ضروری ہیں. ایک یہ گریو اور سڈن پرووکیشن کا جو پرنسپل ہے یہ آنر کلنگ کی ڈیفینیشن کے ساتھ ہی ہائی لائٹ کر دینا چاہیے. اور آئی فیل کہ جو پرنسپل آف پالیسیز ہیں آرٹیکل 35 پروٹیکشن آف فیملی اور آرٹیکل 37 پروموشن آف سوشل جسٹس, اگر ہم اس کو پرنسپل آف پالیسی سے نکال کر فنڈامنٹل رائٹس میں لے آئیں تو یہ ایک جسٹیفیبل پرنسپلس بن جائیں گے جسے چیلنج کیا جا سکتا ہے. اور آئی تھنک ایجوکیشنل سسٹمس کے اندر بھی آپ کو سوشل اور جو سوشل ویلیوز اور جینڈر رائٹس کے بارے میں ایکٹیولی پروموٹ کرنا چاہیے. اور سروائیورس کے لیے آپ کے پاس پروویژنز ہونے چاہیے کہ آنر کلنگ صرف یا آنر کرائم ان کی لیے ہیلپ نہ کرے جو اس سے مر جاتے ہیں, لیکن جو سروائیو کرتے ہیں ان کے لیے بھی شیلٹر ہومس یا پروٹیکشنز ہونی چاہیے تاکہ وہ سامنے آئیں اور انہیں رپورٹ کر سکیں.
Thank you, Aksha. These are some very excellent and very comprehensive recommendations that you've given, and inshallah we'll be working on each one of them individually. But for now, Zain, when we talk about the rape and sexual abuse legislation, you've suggested that reporting mechanisms need to be improved. There has to be a certain degree of sensitization in the officials. But apart from that, what are the legal improvements that you'll suggest?
First of all, I would like to say that the new punishment that we were debating, castration, we should remove that because it's just a waste of time. Because there are multiple research shows that even after castration, a person can able to recover it because it's not with the sex organ; it's also happening with other object. So besides focusing on that thing or the public thing, we should focus on the rehabilitation center, because they have been working in UK and US, and many universities also creating their own centers for their rehabilitation. So,
Right. Zen, I think your audio is not very.
am I audible now? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible now? Yeah. So I was saying that we should launch the rehabilitation center, but with that, it should be separate from other rehabilitation center, and many experts and psychologists should be recommended on that. They're proper trainers, proper doctors, and proper assistant and advisor should be appointed on these centers, so we can rehabilitate these persons, because human is the most flexible thing in the world. So we can influence them, we can change their ideas, because uh, rape is a psychological crime, because we have to change the psychiatry or the psyche of the criminals, so we can improve their mental health. We can, because I consider there are some people, because there are multiple ways to fulfill their needs, sexual needs, but they choose to do a rape because there's something bad happened to them. They maybe they are in certain influence, maybe there are environmental factors for that. So I think we can change these factors by that. Secondly, I also recommend that we should use some measures before happening the rape, because there is a concept and there's a hype of child abuse. The concept of good touch and bad touch was introduced in our schools. There is also other concept about rape should also be introduced in our schools, in our education system, and every individual in our society, so we can all together can hold on this crime, because it's the most heinous crime. It's the most dangerous crime I consider in that can happen to a woman. So these are my recommendations for that.
Thank you, Zain. So we'll quickly have Sarmad's views on how his the particular area that he worked on, acid crime, how can that be improved?
So let's just say we're not as far behind as we think we are. I have had the privilege to be a part of the overseas conference that was presided by the honorable judges of the Supreme Court last year, probably a couple of years ago, at the Punjab Judicial Academy. So the focus was primarily on the gender-based violence issues and the gender sensitivity issues. So one of the initiatives that they basically had was that we have gender-based violence courts in Lahore as well as in Islamabad as well. Now, what needs to be improved, I believe, is that we need to be, we as lawyers and law students, of course, we need to be proactive in such scenarios. In such cases, so the basic problem that I think that basically entails the issues that all the gender-based violence cases and the gender sensitivity issues that entails is the reporting of cases. 90% and 80% of those gender-based violent cases, they go unreported. Why? Because we have because the police and the investigation system, the FIA, the investigation agencies, they're all lacking behind in such cases. The implementation is a problem. The police, whenever there's a victim of gender-based violence, there's a domestic abuse victim, there's a child abuse victim, for instance, or an acid attack victim. The first place for reporting is the police station. So 90 and 80% victims, they do not report it to the police. Why? Because of the stigma. Why? Because we live in a conservative society, I would like to believe. So I think it's a collective responsibility, not just for the lawmakers, not just for the judiciary, not just for the lawyers. It is a collective responsibility of the civil society at large, for human rights activists, for students, for everybody to raise awareness. Just like YGA has initiated this program, they've launched this handbook that they're going to soon be launching. We need to raise awareness in such issues. With regards to acid attack, as I've mentioned, the sale of acid, the manufacturing and sale of acid, it needs to be prohibited. That's where the challenge and the problem lies, because we have a symbolic presence of legislation, domestic legislation, with regards to acid. but we need to be more proactive in such cases and such scenarios.
Right. Thank you for giving us those recommendations. Moving on, Amna, if you could just quickly go over certain recommendations that can improve the cybercrime law in Pakistan.
So, firstly, I would say that we need to create awareness on cybercrime. So, our community still doesn't know that a law exists for protection. There's a law that can protect you, and especially you need to do it because now with the upcoming things are, especially after COVID, I would say that cybercrime is the highest crime, I think so, all over the world and surely in Pakistan as well. So government is still struggling. It's still struggling in amending the act, but they have provided an act by in the form of PAC 2016, and FIA has specialized a wing that like goes through all the the crimes that is committed. So people should go report to the police that this has happened with us, and then the lawyer should make a clear point that they need to provide protection, and the judges have to provide justice to the one who is affected, because this eventually does not harms anybody's physical health, but mentally a victim is done, mentally he's done. A lot of things are going on in the internet and everything. So I think so we need to create awareness as a whole.
Right. That brings us to the end of this session. I would like to do two things. Firstly, I would like to thank each of the associates, Amin, who's not here, Turab, who's not here, but those who were here as well in the meeting, Aksa, Zain, Sarmad, Amna. These people have put in a lot of effort and that's reflected in the work they've been doing. And I'm sure that once the book comes out, it will be very helpful for all of them. Secondly, because all of them are either practitioners or they're law students, and they had very little previous research experience. So this book has been a challenge for them. And I would really urge all our viewers, all our members of the Youth General Assembly, even the general public, to support them. This book might not be the most perfect version on gender-based violence laws, but again, I'm sure there's something for everyone in this book. That being said, I don't know if my internet is working properly, but I hope that I've conveyed my message. That brings me towards the end of this session. Thank you, Amna, Sarmad, Zain, and Aksa, and I hope to see you guys soon in the upcoming sessions that we'll be having on this project.